Iran Daily Briefing, Saturday, May 2nd, 2026. Friday marked 60 days since President Trump notified Congress of the start of hostilities with Iran, the deadline set by the war powers' resolution for securing congressional authorization to continue military action. Trump's response: the law doesn't apply because the war is over. That claim is now being contested on multiple fronts: legal, legislative, and military. We'll break down all three positions, who's making them, and what's corroborated coming up. The ceasefire between the United States and Iran has held since early April, but the legal and diplomatic dimensions of the conflict remain active. Friday's war powers deadline forced a direct confrontation between the White House and Congress over whether the president needs authorization he says he no longer needs for a conflict he says has ended under a law he says is unconstitutional. All three of those positions come, so far, exclusively from France 24's reporting, and none has been independently corroborated by other sources in today's intelligence. That matters, and we'll flag it clearly as we go. Meanwhile, the naval blockade continues. New sanctions landed Friday. An arms package for regional partners was approved, and a senior Iranian military official is warning that renewed conflict is likely if talks continue to stall. Today's episode covers the war powers standoff in depth, 4 developing stories, and what to watch heading into the week. The war powers clock, and what the White House is saying about it. The war powers resolution, the 1973 law that limits a president's ability to commit U.S. forces to combat without congressional approval, sets a 60-day deadline. If Congress hasn't authorized the action, the president must withdraw forces or seek an extension. Friday was day 60. Trump notified Congress on March 2nd that hostilities with Iran had begun, per France 24's reporting, a date that starts the clock. So what did the White House do when the clock ran out? It made 3 arguments. France 24 is the sole source for all 3, and none has been independently confirmed by other outlets in today's intelligence. Hold that in mind. Argument 1. Trump wrote to congressional leaders that hostilities have terminated, that the war, for legal purposes, is over. A letter cited by CNN and reported by Middle East Eye states there has been no exchange of fire between US and Iranian forces since April 7th and that the conflict began on February 28, 2026. That February 28th start date comes exclusively from Middle East Eye's reporting on Trump's letter and is a single-source claim pending broader corroboration. The ceasefire date, April 7th, is consistent with what we've reported previously from multiple sources. Argument 2. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told Congress, according to France 24, that the ceasefire effectively pauses the war powers resolution clock, meaning the 60-day period stops running while a ceasefire is in place. France 24 is the sole source for this specific characterization, and it has not been confirmed elsewhere in today's intelligence. It is a significant legal claim attributed to the Defense Secretary, and listeners should hold it accordingly. Argument 3. France 24 reported separately that Trump also argued the war powers resolution is unconstitutional altogether. This is the lowest confidence claim of the 3. Single source and not corroborated by any other outlet in today's intelligence set. Taken together, the administration is running 3 legal arguments simultaneously. The war is over, so the clock is moot. The ceasefire paused the clock anyway, and the law itself doesn't apply. Again, all 3 of these positions come exclusively from France 24. Independent confirmation is still outstanding. Trump also told Congress in that same letter that he was not satisfied with Iran's latest negotiating offer, but that talks were continuing by phone. That's from France 24. What does Washington's posture look like on the ground? U.S. Central Command reported on May 1st that 45 commercial vessels have been directed to turn around or return to port, as part of the naval blockade of Iran's ports, per Middle East Eye, and Trump, in separate remarks, reported by both Al Jazeera and Al Monitor, said the US Navy was acting like pirates in conducting that blockade. That colourful self-description is now circulating in two outlets. Correspondent Adrian Blomfield of The Telegraph, cited by France 24, reported observing approximately 300 small speedboats operating at high speeds in the Strait of Hormuz, an indication of continued Iranian naval presence in those waters. What to watch? The war powers confrontation now moves to Congress. Yesterday's look ahead flagged a formal congressional response as a key watch item. We haven't seen one yet. Watch for any Senate or House statement formally accepting, rejecting, or challenging the administration's claim that hostilities have terminated. Story 1. Regional arms sales. $8.6 billion package. On Friday, May 1st, the U.S. State Department approved military sales worth more than $8.6 billion to Israel, Qatar, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. That's from Al Monitor. Included in that package, an arms sale of $992.4 million specifically for advanced precision kill weapon systems for Israel, according to the Times of Israel, which is the sole source for that specific figure in today's intelligence. The broader package covers 4 countries simultaneously, suggesting Washington is reinforcing relationships with key Gulf partners while the blockade of Iran continues. What to watch? Whether any of the 4 governments publicly acknowledges or responds to the approval, particularly Qatar and Kuwait, both of which have maintained active diplomatic communications with Tehran. Story 2. New sanctions on a Chinese oil terminal. The U.S. State Department imposed sanctions Friday on Qingdao Haye Oil Terminal, a Chinese company, for importing large volumes of Iranian crude through what the U.S. describes as sanctions evasion practices, according to Middle East Eye, which is the sole source reporting this designation in today's intelligence. This continues a pattern we've tracked across several episodes, the U.S. using secondary sanctions to target the infrastructure that moves Iranian oil to market. Qingdao Haye is a terminal operator, meaning the designation targets the physical receiving end of that supply chain, not just the ships or trading companies. What to watch? Any response from Beijing? China's UN ambassador Fu Kong said Friday that maintaining the Iran ceasefire was an urgent necessity. That's from Al Monitor. A sanctions action against a Chinese company, combined with that diplomatic statement, puts 2 signals in the same week that Beijing is watching this conflict closely. Story 3. Narges Mohammadi, medical emergency. Iranian Nobel Peace Prize laureate Narges Mohammadi, who was awarded the prize in 2023, according to Al Monitor, lost consciousness twice and suffered a severe cardiac crisis, according to her foundation. That's from Al Jazeera. No additional details on her current condition are available in today's intelligence. Her foundation is the source for the medical description. What to watch? Any statement from Iranian prison authorities or the judiciary, and whether international human rights bodies respond. Story 4. Trump withdraws. Troops from Germany. Al Jazeera reports that President Trump has decided to withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany following a dispute with European allies over their reluctance to support the war on Iran. This is a single-source report. It marks the clearest indication yet in today's intelligence of concrete transatlantic friction over the Iran conflict, moving beyond diplomatic statements into an actual force posture change. What to watch? Any formal response from Berlin or NATO. We opened this morning on the war powers deadline and the White House's response to it. Here's the fuller picture. Trump notified Congress of hostilities on March 2nd. That started the 60-day clock under the war powers resolution. Friday was day 60. Rather than seek authorization or withdraw forces, the administration sent Congress a letter arguing that hostilities have terminated, pointing to the April 7th ceasefire as the end of active conflict. Simultaneously, Defense Secretary Hegseth argued, according to France 24, which is the sole source for this, that the ceasefire itself paused the clock. And France 24 reported separately that Trump made a third argument, that the resolution is unconstitutional to begin with. 3 legal positions, 1 administration. All 3 sourced exclusively to France 24, none independently confirmed in today's intelligence. Congress has not yet formally responded. 3 things to watch in the next 24 to 48 hours. 1. Congressional response to the War Powers letter. Trump's letter reached congressional leaders on Friday. The administration has now formally staked out its legal position. Hostilities terminated, clock paused, law unconstitutional. All 3 characterizations come from France 24 and remain unconfirmed by independent sources. Watch for any Senate or House response that either accepts, rejects, or demands clarification on those positions. 2. Iranian military posture. France 24 reported Saturday, May 2nd, that senior Iranian military official Mohammad Jafar Assadi suggested renewed conflict with the US was likely as peace talks continued to stall. France 24 is the sole source for this statement.